Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Rockies Daily. I'm your host, Scott Ayers, where we talk all things Colorado Rockies. Got a fun one in store, but first, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, share this, help us continue to grow this show out as we talk about the most beloved team in baseball, the Colorado Rockies. But let's jump into it, and let's talk about some of these young guys that are expected to make a debut in 2026. And there's a few that I think are more likely than others, but I think all important to touch on. Charlie Condon is obviously going to be really the premier, the headline of this group. Condon, who was a top pick in the draft just a couple years ago, now is really at the doorstep of not only making it to the big leagues, but also having an opportunity to start. We've covered Condon a couple of times. He's had a hot start to the spring, and at a position group that doesn't really feel like there is a definite answer right now. And that's great for Condon because I think there's more of an argument for him to be called up and to even start the season on the major league roster. I also wouldn't see it crazy if he starts in AAA, but just with how that position group has looked at the start of this spring training, how it looked even a month ago, we'll touch on if the Rockies should maybe even consider signing a veteran at first, not necessarily to start, but just to hopefully steady things out. Just because you're not looking at a ton of major league at bats currently in that first base group, and so for Charlie Condon, what a great opportunity for him to earn his way into a not only roster spot but starting position. Now, there could be different things that the Rockies work with, and maybe they take one of those utility guys and slide them at first. But for Condon, among the first basemen that he's currently battling with, really it's been TJ Rumfield, who has looked the part compared to Johnston or Krim or Edward Julian. So that is encouraging, right, for the Charlie Condon side of things. When you look at pitching, and there's a few other names that I'll mention as well, but I do want to look at pitching, where it looks like Sean Sullivan could really be the guy that could make his 2026 debut. Sullivan is interesting, and we have noted him on this show before because he is not a top-end velocity pitcher. The Rockies have some guys who can touch 100. Sean Sullivan is not that. He is a guy who his fastball tops out at around 92 miles an hour, which is below league average. But one thing that he does have is really tremendous control. And he's slotted and seen as a possible guy that could be a back-end rotation piece. Sullivan's path will look a little bit different because the Rockies just signed a bunch of vets to help shore up this rotation. But that's not to say he isn't a guy who won't make an appearance in July or August or September. Look, there's a real world where he could even jump up someone even like Ryan Feltner. Now, that's not a guarantee by any means. But it is to say that I really do expect to see Sullivan at some point in 2026. Again, he has really solid control. And the vets in front of him, I mean, they're all older vets, really, except for Lorenzen, who's, still fairly old in his mid-30s. But for Quintana and Sugano, they are both guys who will have to prove they still have something left in the tank. So I absolutely think that there is a pathway there for Sullivan to get some starts in 2026. Then you look at the rest of this bunch, and there are more guys listed, but I picked out a few. Obviously, Cole Carrick, Jared Thomas, those are two offensive pieces. Carrick we've actually seen quite a bit of here in spring training, and his bat has looked actually pretty solid. I think Carrick has a real chance of being one of those guys that gets called up in July or August. Thomas falls in that camp as well. It's harder for Thomas, though, because Carrick, he can play infield and outfield, listed as an outfielder and a shortstop. For Thomas, mainly outfield. His best bet is to really, really shine at the center field position to try to find his way kind of out of the murky water that is this very loaded outfield, not just at the major league level, but you have to look at the AAA and minor league level as well. Zach Veen, who I expect to make the roster, but if he doesn't, now you're competing with Sterling Thompson, Zach Veen, just to name a few. And so for Jared Thomas, his path just isn't as clear as some of these other names that I've mentioned. But definitely has the pieces to be a guy that gets called up in 2026. And then the final guy we'll note on is Gabriel Hughes, who's now a year removed from Tommy John surgery, right-handed pitcher. And, recovering from Tommy John, it takes a little bit of time. So while Hughes is slotted and believed to be able to make an appearance in 2026, I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that might get pushed out by another year to 2027. But I do think Hughes has what it takes to make it to the major league level. However, he has struggled on some of the stops along the way. So it's just not as clear of a path. Kind of that same situation as Jared Thomas. However, for Gabriel Hughes, the one benefit is the Rockies always need pitching. There will always be a reason for the Rockies to call up a pitcher if they are showing some signs of life. So that's where it's different from comparing to someone like Jared Thomas, where he's in a very crowded position group. You could say the pitching is crowded, but I mean, guys are going to struggle for the Rockies. I'm saying that as a definite just because we've seen that for the past 30 years. So that's where the path becomes a little bit easier for Hughes in terms of there's going to be guys technically ahead of him that probably won't be ahead of him once the season actually gets rolling. But that's besides the point. The biggest thing to note, Charlie Condon, he will be making a premiere at some point in 2026. I've definitely hit the point. I've definitely switched sides earlier on. I was like, you know what? Let him cook in AAA. But I'm at a point. I would love to see that guy at the major league level. And obviously, the front office, the coaching staff will make the right decision. But just what the Rockies have and the power that Condon has shown, I just would really love to see him be making a major league appearance sooner rather than later. We'll roll through this game here today. I'm recording this Monday night for Tuesday's show. The Rockies fall to the Dodgers. They make a late push in their spring training game. Had the bases loaded. Rumfield grounds out to end the game. But still some positive takeaways. Ryan Ritter, once again, 1 for 3 with an RBI. That's as well as Mickey Moniak and Kyle Karros both hitting home runs in this game. And look, I've been on the Kyle Karros train for a while now. I would love to see Kyle Karros as a starting third baseman for the Colorado Rockies. Let Castro play second, Tovar at short. Heck, Charlie Condon can play first because we don't know what's going on with Tyler Freeman yet. And obviously when Freeman comes back, they can figure it out. But I would love to see Kyle Karros really get an opportunity to play third. And his bat has just remained hot this spring. Moniak obviously proving that he's going to be a really, really solid DH for the Rockies, as well as just playing in the outfield for some games. On the pitching side, only a couple of names to note. Herget got the nod, 2 innings pitched, 1 earned. And then Herrera, who is expected to be a name that could be called up at some point, goes 2 innings and gives up 2 earned. For the Rockies, obviously, the biggest thing is just to see some of the different storylines that we can get this spring. And obviously, we touched on it multiple times, but it is so encouraging to see what Ritter and Karros have been able to do with their bats. Karros, we know, is solid defensively. So really, that's been the thing that has been my biggest takeaway so far this spring. Kyle Karros just continues to impress. Again, it's at the spring training levels, so I get it's different. But man, Kyle Karros, if he can be a solid bat in this Rockies lineup, that will go a long ways to just having a better season than what we saw in 2025. obviously I mentioned storylines. I mentioned things that we have been able to note in spring training. One of the biggest negatives, though, Brenton Doyle with that sprained wrist, and we are still waiting to hear more about what the duration of this injury will look like. Again, I'm recording this Monday night, so maybe something comes out after I record here. But just a massive blow. Obviously, if Doyle isn't good to go, come season start at the end of March here, it's a massive blow for a guy that I think all of us want to see just have a massive bounce back year. And it's hard to have a bounce back if you are if you're hurt. And so for Doyle, you hope this is just a small thing, and you hope that this is just something that takes a couple weeks and he's good to go. But definitely better to be cautious about something like this. There is under no circumstance any reason to rush him back. I think the Rockies know this. I think the training staff knows this. I think Doyle knows this. Obviously, if he's out for that first weekend, so be it. Even if it's the first couple of weeks, but just don't rush him back. If anything, it just gives the Rockies more opportunities to see, all right, let's figure out this outfield a little bit more and some of the prospects that we have. But we obviously want Doyle back because him in the lineup does give the Rockies the best chance to win, especially just because of how solid he is defensively. But I figured in today's show, we haven't talked much about free agency in the last month, mainly because the Rockies made a lot of moves, spring training started, and we've gotten some different storylines, right, for the Rockies. But that first base position, we just keep coming back to it. And look, I understand. Sorry, I had an eye itch. We do it live here, so you see some wacky stuff. Itch in my eye was one of them. But look, I understand the Rockies maybe not making some moves when they had the chance. It is a bummer, though, when you see guys like Rhys Hoskins signing like a minor league contract. And, maybe the Rockies just really want to try to develop at the first base position, which is totally fair. I do think, though, signing a vet isn't crazy, and it really is inexpensive. And now the Rockies are unfortunately at a point where the options are really slim. Donovan Solano and Justin Turner are probably your two best options. Solano is 38 and Turner is 41. So you're now looking at two options who are not young. These are older guys that, ultimately I think asking for 150 at bats is kind of what you'd be looking for these kind of players. But I think it would just give you more of an established steadiness. I think it would also, what we've talked about often, is raise the floor for the Colorado Rockies. You can't have too many floor raisers, especially on a team that failed to win 45 games last year. You need to find guys that can just help raise the floor and help prepare for the future. Obviously, signing a first baseman like this, it'd be a 1-year deal, and it would be done. And that was the whole point of looking at guys like Hoskins before, because the plan is Charlie Condon. Many of us believe Charlie Condon will be the long-term answer for the Rockies. But if Condon isn't ready yet, you kind of look at what the Rockies have. TJ Rumfield has actually shown us a decent amount. He's shown us he has legit power, which is great. But some of these other guys, Johnson, we just haven't seen it. Blaine Krim, it's just a nothing burger. And Edward Julian, who I talked about last show, I just certainly do not believe in. So that's where you kind of look at free agency. You look at vets, and the market is just super thin. So there's always the route of trading for a veteran first baseman, but why would you do that? Like, why give up any assets unless someone's calling for Chris Bryant? If someone is calling for Chris Bryant and they are offering you, a 52-year-old first baseman, it's a guy they found at a park that can barely run up and down the base path, you say yes. You want Chris Bryant? Yes. That's it. You don't say anything else. You give him a nod. You send him Chris Bryant. Let them pay the rest of that contract, and you take that 52-year-old to start at first. That would probably be the only time you make a trade, just because it's just really not worth giving up assets unless it really makes sense. But regardless, you get the point. It's a really thin market, but it still might be worth considering if you're the Colorado Rockies, especially if the team struggles out of the gate, and especially at that first base position. But regardless, that is where we're at with the Rockies. If it was my pick today and the Rockies didn't sign a first baseman, it's Rumfield and Condon as the guys at first. Tyler Freeman would also be great if he's kind of just playing utility everywhere. But I just have loved the power that we've seen from both Rumfield and Condon. With that, it's another Rockies Daily. Thank you so much for watching. If you can, please hit that like button and subscribe. Really means a lot. Continue to leave comments. Give me your thoughts, things you like, things you don't like. Leave it all down below. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow.